all I want you to see right there.
Hey! This is hey!
That's all I want you to see right there, man.
Hey!
I'm glad everybody gone.
Boy, you gotta play that like 3 times. Hey! Boy, what? Man! Hey! Hey, man.
Green down. Green down.
Hit it again. Hey!
Look. Look at this here, man.
I see him over there.
Look at this here.
Boy, I love that goddamn song, man. Changed my life, bro. That song changed my life, boy.
Oh, I'm finna do it right now. I'm finna sing it right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, boy. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm sending both of your frat brothers, man.
Huh?
You know, Marcus was on there too, Marcus Hill. I know you know Marcus Hill.
I don't know. I probably know if I see him. I'm here, bro. What you pointing at me for? Hey, man, why you got this?
Man, talk, man.
Man, fix this microphone.
Man, talk, man.
Man.
Talk, man.
Bro, you ain't gonna get paid this month. I promise you that. You gonna be just like goddamn. You gonna be like Mr. Whipple. You ain't getting paid this goddamn dog month. I mean, this is a gospel show, man. I'm not gonna be fooling with you.
We just turned his mic off, y'all.
Hey, man. Hey, when I grab that thing like that, boy. I mean, I'm locked and loaded, man.
Anthony said, let's go, Trojans.
That's what's up. You know what's up. Come on, man. This man. Come on, man. Still getting a little bit of feedback, Ryan. What you say you know what you're doing over there, man?
You shouldn't be.
I'm seem like it, man. It seems that way, man.
There you go.
It seems that way.
That's all you need right there.
That's all I need right there.
That's all you need.
Oh man. Woo-wee. Woo-wee. I had to calm down off of that. Woo-wee. Woo-woo-woo. Dang. Y'all just don't know, man. Y'all don't know. I know it's got them Rains and Reebok week. I know what week it is, man. So we're going to go and get that out of the way. Let y'all know what's happening. I'm your host, your gracious host, Joaquin Thompson. And today is our 27th episode. And I just can't contain. I mean, man, I get so hyped when I come onto this show because I know without a shadow of a doubt I'm on purpose. So I love helping the people, man, getting a lot of feedback. I apologize for last week. I was out of the country and could not get no reception, so I planned to do the show, but I was on a cruise in the boat, and I was being economical, and wouldn't pay the fee.
Cheap. You mean cheap?
I got on the boat and got tight, like run the mother episode. But no, I couldn't do it, man. It was the internet was going in and out, so I said, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna mess with it. It's all good. Good evening. This is the Daily Bread Radio Show. Got a lot of information for you all today. A lot of information and a lot of good things going on in the world of personal finance. So I want to make sure that I share all of that with you. Got some really exciting information that we're going to share. And tonight, I keep saying today. It is nighttime, but it's today's nighttime, I guess.
That's what it is.
But
in the morning time. Go ahead.
See, they keep telling me to leave you alone, man, but I'm not gonna have you take over my show. But one of the things that I want to talk about today, the last show that we had, episode 26, I went through step by step on the things that you need to do to prepare for 2018. I just took you step by. Nobody should be able to call into the Daily Bread Radio Show and say, I don't know what to do, or I don't understand. took you step by step, how to set up your budget, how to set up your calendar. And when you set up that calendar, that's really what's known as a bill payment system. Once you get everything in a system, everything that you deal with in life that works well, that works to perfection, is in a system. Nature, the law of nature is based on a system. Every day, without cease, without you have to think about it, that sun comes up, that sun goes down. Every day, it is done that every day throughout time. You don't have to worry about, is the sun gonna come up? Not talking about forecasts, I'm talking about systems. Just like now, we're going into another season. Happens every year around the same time. When we get into November, it's a season. All of this is a system. So what we have to do is learn from nature, ultimately learn from God that we need to create a system and not be disorganized. Because once you put that system in place, once you get that system in place and you tweak it a little bit and you get it exactly the way that you want it, you get it running like a fine-tuned machine, then you can walk away from that system. You can take your hands and your eyes off of it, because guess what? It's automated at that point, and it will run itself. You don't have to worry about when are the bills due, am I late, do I have a late payment, am I over the limit, is my credit being impacted? You will have a system. You will have it.
It's a system.
Man, what is that? Sound effects?
Yeah.
Man, give me something else, bro.
You don't like that?
But so we're gonna talk. So the last episode, that's what we talked about. That was just a quick little recap. This week, these are the things that we're gonna talk about this week. So if you tuned into the Daily Bread Radio Show, you're gonna have some exciting information that I'm gonna share with you all, and it's really gonna be tonight's show. I want to spend some time talking about businesses, because one of the things that I challenged everybody to do within the next 12 months is two things. I said, one, you need to write a book. You need to, everybody within the sound of my voice, anybody who looks at these videos, and I appreciate all of the support, if you hear me say anything in the next 12 months, you need to write a book. It could be a 3-page book, 300-page book, 1,000-page, it doesn't matter. Go through the process and write a book. The second thing that I said that I want everybody to do, this was my challenge to everyone, was to start a business. Because I feel very strongly about business, what business, having a business and being a business owner affords you. And tonight, I'm going to dedicate tonight's show to speaking about business. The second thing that I'm going to talk about tonight is the scholarship program that the Daily Bread Radio Show has partnered with American Financial Literacy Association to come up with a fantastic opportunity to raise funds for students that are at risk for not graduating from college because they've exhausted all of their available funding, i.e. they're in their last semester of college, and for whatever reason, you know, they've exhausted all of their funds, and they're maybe $5,000 short, $6,000 short. And a lot of colleges and universities will not allow them to participate in commencement services until they have met their obligations. And they will not give them their degree until they have paid those outstanding balances. So what I wanted to do is, it's just, I'm one person, I get it. I know I can't change the world by myself, but the way that I thought about it is, if I get enough people behind me, if I get enough people believing in the cause, if I get enough people to say, hey, you know, what's $100, what's $20, what's $15, what's $5, what's $1, anything that they want to give, and as a collective we start to give, it's not about how many, it's about who, right? It's not about how many. I mean, I know I may not be able to help 1 million students, but if I help one student, to graduate, or 2 students, or 10 students, then I've done my part, because as a collective, if we all work together, then the more people I can help. I set my goals real high. I'm not going to jump ahead in the show, but I'm going to talk about that as well. So we're going to talk about the opportunity that we have that's related to scholarships and students. So I think we have something very, very exciting around that. We're going to talk about that as well. Our book of the week this week is The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. Just that title alone, The Miseducation of the Negro. This is a deep book. This is a classic book that everybody should have. So we're going to spend some time dealing with Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson wrote maybe 16 different books. And a very, very, very powerful brother that I would consider as being black excellence. So we're going to talk about, that's our business of the, our book of the week. So we're going to talk about book of the week as well. So that way we're going to have some fun on the show. We got all of our different, affiliates online. We have all of our different people that are following us. So we've been getting a lot of feedback and love from everybody. So we appreciate that. Tanya, I see you. Love of my life. The Rock. TT, couldn't do it without you. Ashley definitely couldn't do it without you, because I always say, and my wife reminded me when I was out of the country last week, that I always say it don't matter where I do the show and when I do the show. I know I'm going to have at least 3 people. One day I'm going to have 3 million, but today it's 30,000. So I'm going to work my way up, but love what I do. Wouldn't have it any other way. And so what I think we should do is just go ahead and jump right in and see what we have in store for today's show. The number to the studio, 678-381-1973, 678-381-1973. We want to definitely hear from you, so if you have a question, a concern, something's on your mind, you want to call in, you want to, ask a question, then by all means, please do so, because one of my mottos is, I'm here to serve. So if you have a question about something or concern, or you need some clarity on something, by all means, just reach out to me, let me know, and we'll make sure that we address that question. So let's jump right in on business and business creation. So one of the things that, like I said, I think is very important about having a business is this. It's very beneficial to you from a tax purpose. I mean, that was one of the things that really drew me into business, and looking at the advantages of having a business is the fact that it really helps you from a tax standpoint. And why is that important? That's important because as an individual, we, depending on how much you make, you could be paying anywhere from 15%, 20%, 25%, 30%, and up to 40% of your salary in taxes. So what does that mean? So we're going to use real small numbers so everybody will get the gist of what I'm talking about. Say you take a family or individual, they make $100,000, right? So $100,000, oh, it seems like a lot. Like, oh my goodness, they make 100, they 6 figures, so on and so forth. But here's the thing: if they're in a 40% tax bracket, right? 40% tax bracket. That means that if they make $100,000, they're paying $40,000, or they're liable. I guess that's the better way of putting it. They have a tax liability of $40,000 per year. Now we're talking about annually. So now, instead of you having $100,000, you have $60,000 that you have to manage. So $60,000 is a whole lot different than $100,000 when you start to talk about managing money. So having a business can put you into a more advantageous position, so that way you're not at risk or you don't have the same tax liability. So for me, if nothing else, if I have a payroll position, I'm working for someone, I have payroll income, it's advantageous for me to have a business, because I can take advantage of laws, keyword there, laws that are set aside specifically for business owners. I can take advantage of those laws, participate in that system. Remember what we talked about, systems. Participate in that system and make it where it's advantageous to me and my loved ones when it comes to economics. So $100,000 you might be paying $40. So that's one reason that having a business is very, very advantageous. The second thing about having a business that makes it very attractive is this. Is nothing like being the person that makes the decisions about your money and how you make it. So you may start off with a small business. You may start off with something small that you're working out of your house. May even be a hobby. Some people have turned hobbies into businesses. Trading cards, trading stamps. You know, they may have started off with a detail service. They may have started off selling food, you know, anything. But then that business can grow to the point where now they're not just selling cars, but they're a memorabilia dealer. Or they, you know, now they've grown that selling food. Now they have a huge catering business. So the thing about it is, but as you grow your business, it's nothing like you being in charge of the money that's coming in and the responsibility of managing that business. Because having a business and managing a business, it teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you a lot of business skills and leadership skills that are going to really help you to grow. And it really is something when you have a business that you can't sidestep. Like you can't bypass, you can't cut corners. Like if you have a business, taxes involved, sales taxes involved, other things are involved. So you always want to make sure that when you start a business, start it small enough that you can deal with it. Because sometimes when you jump out into a big business, it can become detrimental to your health. Meaning you could be so stressed out, you may have a stress, stroke, heart attack, and die. I mean, literally, there's a lot of people that have died behind businesses trying to, you know, stand businesses up, trying to do things to, you know, ensure that their businesses are successful. But I would recommend that, you know, that. So for me, I think jump ahead. That's the second reason I think that businesses are advantageous at any age, because I know that's something that a lot of people ask me now, like, hey, you know, I'm 50. Hey, I'm 55. Should I be starting a business? I'm getting older. You should start a business because you're still paying taxes. And number two, things that you already, here's the third thing, things that you already are participating in, right? Me and my wife have been having this conversation recently about a business and looking at a different, you know, looking at a franchise. And the thing that I always look at is, look at the things that you're already doing in your life and figure out a way that you could turn that into a business. It's just like the radio show here, right? Raheem was at home. He's doing this thing. He has his computers. He has his microphones. That's what I call a hustle, right? Even if you get money coming in, that's really more like a hustle, right? Because it's not documented. He can't write it off on his taxes. He can't take any of the advantages. That's a hustle. So let's talk about the difference between having a business and a hustle. Now, when you have a hustle, the thing about having a hustle is this: it's not documented. So you're not going to be able to get all of those tax advantages of having a business, regardless of how big or how small it is, because it's a hustle. So what you have to do is you take something like what Raheem was doing, he's working at home, he's doing his thing, this is passion, but then he start taking some specific prescribed steps that's in that system to create a business. So let's start at the top. And I'm gonna get, and this is just my opinion. So don't go running off like, oh no, you need to do this. Or if you go, this is my opinion. I have owned, I don't want to give you all the wrong number. So I'm gonna be safe. I'm gonna play it safe. Between my wife and I, in my lifetime, I've owned over somewhere between 5 and 10 businesses, different types of businesses, right? I consider all of them to be successful businesses because each one of those businesses or business endeavors taught me something different about business, right? And meeting different people taught me about business. Because when you're in business, you have to start to come into contact with accountants and attorneys and tax attorneys and bookkeepers and payroll services and, you know, all these different things like, wow, okay, I had no idea. And then you get a chance to get in touch with, you get the opportunity to meet the IRS up close and personal because they call you and they send you some letters that you really can't, you know, disregard or overlook because they send them certified, pretty much. Like they know you there, They send them, and you don't want to, it's kind of like a big person or somebody that from the UFC, kind of like calling your name, and you just ignore. You can't ignore the IRS, because if you ignore the IRS, they will slap you with something. And when they start to slapping you, and I've been slapped by the IRS before too, so full transparency, don't like it. It's not good. It's better when you can have communication with them. They're always willing and able to work with you, but don't act like you don't hear them when they calling, when they sending them letters. Don't disregard those letters. Give them a call and say, hey, I don't have it. Let's work it out. So teaches you a lot. So these steps are my personal steps from having businesses, things that I've learned. And I'm going to just share a few of them with you, not in any specific orders, but collectively, I would say all of these things work together in a system. So you as the individual will have to decide how you want to implement them into your system, right? So just talking about establishing a business, I'm not going to say a small business, because some people are like, hey, you want to start off with a small business. I'm going to say a business, because a business could be small business. It could be a home-based business. It could be a franchise. You could have a commercial business. It's thousands of different types of businesses that are in the world. Now, a couple of things I'm going to share with you so that way you don't get, you always hear the naysayers say this. And this is you can go out to small business, do your research on the internet about small businesses, but I want to say that the ratio is this, like 80% of all new small businesses that are started go out of business within the first 12 to 18 months. It's about 80%. Of the 20% that's left, about 50% of those, 50 to 60% of those will be out of business within the first 60 months or 5 years. So that leaves a very, very small number of businesses that continue to thrive beyond the 5-year threshold. I have been fortunate to be a part of a business. The last business that we had, me and my wife, we did like 10 and a half years, close to 11 years. So wasn't easy, but we were able to have a successful business. It really, to me, became iconic in the community. Iconic from the standpoint that everybody knew about our business. And it really afforded us a lot of opportunities running that business as our children were, going off into college, as they were starting off into their different, endeavors. It provided another income for us as well. So, number one. So I'm gonna give you my steps. So number one, and I'll follow along with you all, so that way I won't get confused as well. So I'm gonna write out my top. This is gonna be like my top 10. So 9, 10. Okay. So we good on time? Excellent on time. So number one, first thing you need to do is decide what type of business you want to do. I think that's very important. Decide and listen to the words that I'm using. Decide what type of business you want to have. You decide what you want to have. And the reason I'm stressing that is this. Many times people start businesses, borrow money, do different things. They're going to start a business, but they start the business because somebody else told them, you would be good at this business and you should start it, right? Your food is so good. Oh, you can cook. You need to open a restaurant. And you say, oh, okay. Yeah, I do need to open a restaurant. But you don't have any idea about what it takes to run a restaurant. But you're going off of what, family members, other people said about you being a good cook. You could be a good cook, but you may not be a good business owner of a restaurant. So decide what type of business you would like to be involved in. And that, for me, that's always like the first step. To me, it always turns out much better when you have a passion or you have some type of expertise in an area when you get ready to start a business. I mean, you can go out and start a franchise. Good thing about franchises, they give you a blueprint. So they're going to tell you when to drop the fries, when to bring the fries up, how to make the sandwich. They taking out all of the guesswork. But when you start your own business and it's not a franchise and there's no blueprint, there's a lot of pitfalls in business. So, but if you have a passion about something, because one of the things, and this is a sidebar, one of the things that people are not going to tell you, but any business owner that you meet will tell you this. there is no time limits on owning a business. And what I mean by that is, if you own a business, you working all the time, like all the time, until you get to the point where you can have you a nice staff and you get established. But even then, you are going to be working extremely long hours, extremely tough times. So you want it to be something that you have a passion about, because if not, what end up happening is those days will be even longer than they would be if you had a passion for it. So decide what you want to do first and give it some thought and make sure it's something that you want to do. That would, for me, that's my step number one. Decide what you want to do. The second thing I would say is give some thought to a business plan, right? And the thing about business plans is this: there's different, I guess you say, people have different opinions about business plans. Some people say you don't need a business plan, or you can start a business without a business plan. You can start a business without a business plan. But one of the things that I've learned about a business plan is this: some people think a business plan is just that, like what the word implies. It's your plan for your business. But really, when you look at a business plan deeper, whenever you get the opportunity to fully complete a business plan, a true business plan, in the end, a business plan is going to force you to ask the questions about your business many times that you haven't thought of. Like, where's the income going to come from? What's going to be your profit margins? What type of profit margins would you, how many people will you need? How many hours would you need? What's going to be your marketing plan? How are you going to fund the business? You know, who's going to give you the money? How much capital do you need? How much working capital do you need? So a lot of times when we start businesses, we just say, hey, I know how to cook ribs. Boom, I'm going to rent me a little place over here, and I'm going to just turn the lights on, go down there, and then I'm in business. But you ain't thought about how much is the price of pork? How much is a case of ribs? How much is the sauce? How much is the aprons? How many times? Oh, you got to get the sinks and you got to get the sanitizers. And so it's a lot of stuff that goes into a business plan. But whenever you take the time to completely fill out, in the end, a business plan, and it's a lot of business plan software out on the internet now. You can Google it. You can go into different software stores and, you know, Best Buys and places like that. Go to Amazon. And you can find business plan software, and I would encourage you to take that business plan software, because the other thing that a business plan will do too is it will let you know if you're ready to start a business or not. Because as you start to fill out that business plan and you can't answer some of those questions that they're asking you, if you just bypass it, like when it says, hey, you're going to need $50,000 in order for this to work, because you said that, you know, your profit margins are going to be here, and this is what your income is going to be, and this is what your price point is going to be on this item, and this is your inventory. And you get to a point where it says, hey, you need $50,000, and you say, oh, I'll just bootstrap it. I'll figure it out later on. I promise you, if you open that business, I promise you, that's going to come back to bite you. Because if you bypass any of those steps in the business plan, it will come back to haunt you. And the good thing about it is, if you do it up front, it may send a red flag off to you, like, you know what, I might not be ready yet. I may need to take a little bit more time to figure out what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, who's going to run it, how we're going to run it, locations, things of that nature. So business plan is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And I wouldn't start a new business, even a small business, like, hey, I'm going to be printing T-shirts out of my house. Even if I did that, I would take the time to go through that business plan, because it will ask me about different things, like how you're going to market it, what's your target market, what's your segment, what's your demographic, what area are you going to be in, are you going to be on the internet, what's your social media campaign. It's going to ask you all these different questions that you need to know when you're starting a business. So I would say business plan is definitely a must for you, but let's just continue to move forward. So you've decided, you've completed your business plan. Now at this point, I would say the next thing that you need to do is what I call due diligence. And within due diligence, I'm going to write myself another note. Within due diligence, you're going to have things about a business that you need to know. Now, one thing about this business game, once you get in the game, there's rules to the game, but the people that are in the game are not necessarily going to tell you the rules. But if you say you're a business and you establish a business, you are going to have to abide by the rules. So one that always jumps out at me is, one of the first things that I would say from a due diligence standpoint is, make sure that you get everything organized. And what I mean by organized is, you need to go down to or contact the Secretary of State. Well, let's back up a step. Before you even contact the Secretary of State, let me put in a 3.1. So on due diligence, I would say one of the first things you need to do is find a good attorney, a good business attorney, and not just any attorney, because you don't want to go to a divorce attorney and start talking about creating businesses. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business. It doesn't necessarily have, some people say you don't need an attorney. There are people that can do the same service for you. The reason I say an attorney is this: it's always good to know, and I know my wife's gonna kill me when I say this, but I'm gonna say it. It's always, and this is true, because I just believe in being truthful with the audience. It's very important for you to know the right way to do something. It's always important to know the right way to do something. The reason I say I'm gonna get in trouble with this is because I'm a risk taker, and everybody is not risk takers. So I have heard people say, this is the way to do it, and I've left that conversation and said, I get it, but I'm not doing it that way. So that can get you, it'll work, but I mean, that's just part of my makeup. I got a high tolerance for risk, but it's really good for you to get an attorney, have a conversation with an attorney, because one of the first things that you want to do while you're doing your due diligence is figure out what type of business entity you want to create. So you've decided what you want to do, you've completed your business plan, and now as part of completing that business plan, you're going to need to speak to, I would recommend, you're going to need to speak to an attorney that's familiar with businesses and business structure. Because what you're going to need to decide is this: what type of business are you going to open? And what I mean by what type, not what you're going to do, like you're going to open a restaurant. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, is it going to be a sole proprietorship? And if it's going to be a sole proprietorship, what's the pros and cons and tax liabilities for being a sole proprietor? Is it going to be a partnership? Partnership, that's me, Raheem. Me and Raheem going to start a business. That's a partnership. It's me and another individual or entity, right? So it could be my business and Raheem's business. We go into a partnership to own whatever. This funeral home, we're going to buy a funeral home, whatever we're going to buy. Cookie making factory. That's a partnership. Third one is you want to look at corporations. Now, even within corporations, you have C Corps and you have S Corps. Now, the reason I say attorneys are good because they can break down to you laws, tax laws, and things of that nature that pertain to each type of business. Sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation. And within the corporation, is it better for you to be a C Corp or is it better for you to establish an S Corp? Because each one of those business entities have different tax liabilities. Now, where you are and what you do and what you're planning to do in your business will also have an impact on what type of business that you want to have. The other thing that you want, I've been talking about tax liability, but take the word tax out of front, from in front of that word, just from a liability standpoint. Because we live in a society where if you do anything incorrectly as a business, many times you put yourself at risk for being what? Sued. So if you know you're going into a certain industry and the likelihood, or any business, and the likelihood or there's a chance that you may be sued, you need to make sure that you think through your personal and your business liability. And what I mean by that is this. Depending on the type of business that you set up, you can expose your personal assets to being exposed to being a liability, meaning if somebody becomes, and they're going to sue your business, sometimes they can get through, and then now they're taking your cars, your houses, and things of that nature because of the type of business you set up. Now, the reason I always recommend you get an attorney, because an attorney can tell you what the laws are, and what's the best positioning for you to be in from a liability standpoint in the event that you are sued. So many times, what I learned early on in my career, when I started business, I've had a sole proprietorship, and then we moved into a partnership, and then I had an LLC, and then we got, which is a limited liability company, right? So that's one that I hadn't thrown out there at you all. You can also have an LLC. There's certain rules and guidelines around having an LLC. Might work for the type of business that you're in. And then we moved into corporations, the C Corp and the S Corps. So corporations are entities within themselves. So I like corporations, and a lot of times people think of corporations, like when I first heard about starting a corporation, I thought about like IBM. Somebody, I was opening a flower company. I'm selling roses and carrying on. And the guy was trying to educate me about being a corporation. And I was like, I ain't no corporation. So I'm thinking like Apple and the big boardroom and everything. And he was like, no. You could be a corporation. It's just the way that it's the business structure. It's the way that the business is structured. And he was just sharing with me that I would have less liability if I set it up from a corporate standpoint as a corporation, as opposed to what I was doing before, which was like partnerships and limited liability companies. So part of your due diligence period would be, I would say, definitely get you a good attorney so that way you can look at, business structure and what type of business that you want to have. So I'm going to make myself just say business structure. The other thing you want to do during your due diligence period is find you a good accountant / bookkeeper. Nothing better than having an accountant. Nothing better than having a good bookkeeper. Trust me when I tell you, nothing better. Only thing better than having a good accountant is a good accountant and a good attorney. And maybe you could get a good tax attorney so that way you can roll them into one. But outside of that, when you're doing business, you need to have a good accountant.
Good banker.
Now, see, this is why you can't have a show with a producer. See, I feel like Puffy, right? Now, I'm the artist. I feel like I'm an artist, and then every time I'm doing the show, my producer want to throw stuff in. Oh yeah, and a good banker. We ain't even there yet. We doing due diligence. You ain't even made no money yet. What you gonna do with a banker? We ain't ready for Mr. Drysdale yet. We gonna get to Mr. Drysdale.
Preparation.
But back to the accountant. The accountant is very important. Reason being is this: when you start a business, you're gonna have different taxes that you're gonna be liable for. Sales tax, income tax, payroll tax, taxes that are related to having employees, employee tax. So you starting off thinking you're just gonna open up this restaurant, and now you got Jane and Joe and Herb and John helping you out. All of a sudden, you're gonna start getting these letters like, okay, are they employees? And the other thing that you have to be careful of too is this, and not to get way off, but I'm gonna just give you a pitfall, because this has happened to me before when we had our business. Sometimes too, you want to make sure that everything with your business is airtight, because you will hire a person, and then next thing you know, you'll get a letter, and the letter will be from child support, and they'll be like, hey, we see John Doe is working with you, and we need to get X number of dollars from you because you his employer, and he listed, and you like, what? Like, do what? So if you got to hustle, right? Like everything's not documented, you don't have a good account, you don't have an attorney, you could be at risk with your business. So that's just a little sidebar about why you want to get everything tight. But that accountant will also help you to forecast. It would help you to see things like you're not charging enough for, your prices are too low, or you're not generating enough revenue to cover your expenses. They can point out a lot of different things, and then they can keep all of your paperwork filed on time, because the other thing that's a huge pitfall for businesses is when you have filings that are not organized and they're not filed timely. IRS, the state, I mean, it can, sales tax, it can get into a tailspin where you like, oh my goodness, how in the heck did I end up on all of this? Because everything was in disarray. But you have a good accountant, a good bookkeeper, that'll keep you out of harm's way. So I would definitely add them into your due diligence period. Having a good bookkeeper and a good accountant. Now, once you have all of these players in place, the next thing I would say that you can do, you figured out what you want to do, you got your accountant, you figured out your business structure. Now what the accountant is going to do, depending on what type of business structure you decide on, he or she is going to submit the paperwork to the Secretary of State on your behalf, and that's what's going to tell the Secretary of State that, hey, this is a corporation. The attorney can also help you with your articles of incorporation, and articles of incorporation are things that you're going to need if you're going to be a corporation. If you're going to be an LLC or partnership, you really don't have to have articles. You can just establish that business, and he or she can also send that paperwork to the Secretary of State, because Secretary of State is going to be where you legitimately have your business registered, so that way if somebody goes in and says, hey, this says Big Bob's Barbecue. Is Big Bob Barbecue? Yeah, we see Big Bob's Barbecue is listed here. He has an entity. He's a partnership. And it'll list out the officers. It'll list out the person who's responsible, things of that nature. So that helps to legitimize your business, because as you start to go into like different phases of your business, you want to make sure that you are registered. You have all of your, and the other thing next to having your business registered with the Secretary of State is, depending on the type of business that you start, you also want to make sure that you check with your county, your state, and the federal government about different types of, I guess you would call them licenses or certifications that you need in order to conduct that type of business. Because there's nothing worse. Now, I said that earlier. When you get into this business game, if you get into a business and you don't have that license or certification and you're doing a certain business, you could be fined or in prison depending on what you're doing. I'm going to give you an example. There have been people, and I've known it because I'm a registered nurse, I've been a registered nurse for 23 years. There have been people that have started different types of healthcare companies, did not get the proper licensing, and the state and local authorities showed up and were saying, you know what, we need to take you down and have a conversation with you, but it's going to cost you some money, and you're going to be behind. We're going to be separated by some bars. I mean, that's just how that's it. And the person said, oh my goodness, I didn't know I needed a license. Don't matter. You got a business. You doing this type of business. That's why you need to do your due diligence. So they don't want to hear all of that once you start. And I'm telling you from experience. Now, I'm not telling you something that I read in a book. I'm telling you about showing up at your business, and one day some guy come in with an iPad or something and say, oh yeah, you don't have no license for this. I'm like, what you mean I need a license for agriculture? I'm like, it's a bakery. We ain't doing no we ain't selling farm animals, or we. It's like, no, you need to have this. And a Department of Health. I'm like, oh my goodness. So make sure you're doing your due diligence. You find out about your licenses. You find out about any certifications that you need, because that can shut your business down instantaneously. And you've heard it before. Something happens to a kid at a daycare, and then once they find out that the kid was left in the van, when they go to the daycare, then they find out the daycare is using people that are undocumented, or they haven't been paying payroll tax, and it just spirals from there. So just learn from me and follow the book. Don't get the information and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it this way, because trust me, it's going to cost you more in the long run than if you just follow. Seems more difficult, could be more costly, but it's nothing like having all your ducks in a row and everything in the right place. So now you're registered with the Secretary of State. You have all your licenses. You have all your certifications, things of that nature. Next thing I would say from a business standpoint is funding. Now we're ready for Mr. Drysdale, And everybody remember the Beverly Hillbillies, and they going down to the bank. Now, let me tell you about funding for businesses. And I'm going to give you all the honest answer just from my experience. Funding is very tough, especially for small businesses. Extremely tough to go into a bank when you haven't done a business, you have no track record, and ask them, even for like a $5,000 loan. Because they're going to look at you and they're going to say, hey, they know the ratio of businesses that go out in a year. So the way the bank is looking at you is like, if I give you $5,000, the likelihood of me getting this back is very, very slim to none. So the bank is looking at you as well as a risk, because you haven't been working in the area, you haven't established a business, you're just a startup. So a lot of times with startups and new businesses, you really have to rely on savings, like savings that you may have, or savings that you can get from a 401k. A lot of times, a lot of books, this is a fun one, a lot of books that say, check with your friends and family members about, making loans. But sometimes friends and family members are like, hey, your barbecue good, but I don't know your business skill set, and I don't know if I want to. And that's just the reality of it, right? I mean, and again, I'm not telling you something that I heard. I'm telling you something that I've experienced. So sometimes you have to just work in a small space. Sometimes you can go into a bank, especially if you got a strong partner, because your partner may have a certain amount of, financial strength, what I call financial strength. Not just credit, but finance, because the bank is looking for, what's the probability of you giving me this money back? And if you can't give me this money back from the business, who can I go after? Who's going to do like a personal guarantee? Or who's going to put up the capital to say, hey, I'll cover it in the event that something goes wrong and I'm not successful in this business. So a lot of banks look for that. Conventional banks, real tough to get loans and funding up front. So a lot of times you have to go to like what I call micro lending. Micro lending is a very, very viable option. I've used them in the past, and what micro lenders do, there's certain organizations out in the, I guess you would say, in the business space that really cater to small businesses and startup businesses. And what they'll do is they'll take all your information. They're not really concerned about your credit score, and they will make you a small loan. Most times they won't give you the money in hand, like here's $5,000. But if you show them your business plan and you show them what you're going to be using the funds for, many times they'll do it, like they'll take that step and do it for you. For example, you may be starting a business that need equipment. They're not going to give you $5,000 in hand. They'll ask you for a bill of sale. They'll ask you for some estimates. And then what they'll do, you could direct them and say, hey, I'm going to be getting this equipment from Jerry's Wholesale Appliances. And they'll contact Jerry's Wholesale Appliances and say, hey, we're working with, Joaquin and his business, and we're going to give you $5,000 because he says he needs this equipment. So they won't put the money in my hand. They'll give it to the appliance dealer. Appliance dealer gives the appliances or the equipment to me for me to run my business. But then I have to pay the micro lender back. Micro lending is not very difficult to get approved for certain monies, but once you've been approved for say like $5,000, you can always go back to them and say, okay, I want a $10,000 loan or $15,000. And some of these micro lenders, they go all the way up to like $50,000. So depending on what you're doing, some people are like, I'm opening a barbershop. May not have a lot of overhead, may not have a huge need for capital, but that's a micro lender is something that is available to you. SCORE, S-C-O-R-E. The Service Corps of Retired Executives, that's an acronym, S-C-O-R-E, SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. And what SCORE is made up of, these are people, business people that are either retired executives, retired business people, that when you can reach out to them, and SCORE could give you some advice as far as where you may be able to find some lending and things of that nature as well. So the SBA, a lot of people go to the Small Business Administration. Small Business Administration, many times government entity that's going to guarantee the repayment of the loan to the grantor. So they work with certain banks, credit unions, and other entities to say, hey, if you allow this person to take out a loan for $5,000, then what we'll do is we'll back it up. We'll guarantee the loan through the SBA, The SBA will stand behind you, so that way in the event that you can't pay it back, they'll in turn pay it back. So I would say from a funding standpoint, those are some things that you could do. I know we got about 10 minutes left in the show, and I got a couple of very, very important things that I need to do. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say for episode 28, we're going to continue. I'm going to make myself a note. We're going to continue this conversation about businesses and how to start a business and the steps to really create a very successful business. So, need your help, Wayne. Look in this bag, and I got a little box in there. Thank you. Here's the book of the week. Book of the week for this week is called The Miseducation of the Negro. This is a very, very powerful book. It was written by Carter G. Woodson.
You see a little box.
Yeah, you see a little box that says Atlanta Falcons on it. Just look through them different things. And in this book, what he's done is he's going over different things to say, hey, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what you do with a person or what you tell a person, as long as you control their mind. You don't even have to tell them what to do. They'll do it on their own. So I'm going to just read a little quick excerpt from the book, and I want you all to get the gist of this. So take some time out, go out to Amazon or your local bookstore, pick this book up. You may have read it before. I read it before. It was a while ago. But when you read some of the things that he's saying and you apply it to what you're going through in today, 2017, it really rings true still, even though he wrote this many, many, many years ago. So here's an excerpt from Carter G. Woodson. He says, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. Now let's think about that, because we just had a show earlier where we were talking about the way that we've been trained in our minds to think about things, and sometimes the way that we think about them, we don't even believe that it's possible for us to attain it, or it's possible for us to do it. So you don't even need somebody else to tell you, hey, you know what, you can't do that. Sometimes you've been conditioned in your mind, and they don't even have to do that, especially when you've been oppressed by a person. So check this out. It says, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find, quote unquote, his proper place and will stay in it. So think about that. Because sometimes people like in payroll jobs and, hey, they want to be an entrepreneur. Or, hey, I'm in this and I want to, open up another store. But sometimes people don't even have to tell you what not to do. Sometimes we'll psych ourselves out. And because we psych ourselves out, we won't do it, or we won't take the action because the way that we've been conditioned in our mind. And what we think we see with our eyes, but it's not what you see, it's what you internalize up here. So he says, you do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. This is called the miseducation of the Negro. And the stuff that he's talking about in here is so deep that I would encourage everybody that's listening within the sound of my voice, go and pick up a copy. If you're not doing anything, make sure you read this, because this will give you some enlightenment into what's going on in the world today. So the miseducation of the Negro, that's our book of the week. Now, we talked about earlier, we're talking about raising money. We're going to go over a little bit, so I apologize. We can probably go about 5 minutes over. But one of the things that I'm working on doing is the Daily Bread radio show is partnered with the American Financial Literacy Association. And what we're doing, we're going to have a special competition to raise money over the next week. And we're going to do it 2 more times during the season. So the short version is this. I purchased some tickets for the Atlanta Falcons this year, and I donated them to a nonprofit organization. The reason I donated them to the nonprofit organization is because I wanted the nonprofit organization to be able to use the tickets to raise money for college students that are at risk for not graduating. And you may be asking yourself, what do you mean? What are you talking about? There's a group of students and you can Google this or you can go out and look for it. They're called completion grants. Completion grants are for students that are in their last semester or their last year of college, meaning they've already completed sometimes 70 to 85% of their coursework, ready to graduate, and because they have an outstanding bill, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, the university, the college or university will not allow them to participate in commencement services, nor will they grant them their degree. Now let's think about this from a family standpoint and think about it from a legacy standpoint. We got, Jane Doe, John Doe, they're going to college. They've gotten, they've completed the first 3 years of college, not in their fourth year, not in their last semester. They've completed, ready to get their degree. They graduated May, it's March. The university is sending them letters saying, hey, look, you will not be able to participate in the commencement services in May unless you pay this $6,000 bill. Now, Jane Doe has exhausted all of the financial aid. They've maxed out all of the loans. Their parents don't have any more contributions. They are just totally tapped out. And what is happening is more and more students are getting to that point in time and they're not graduating. So one of the things that I wanted to get involved with, the reason I wanted to get involved was as I did my research, I found out this, and this shouldn't be rocket science. This is not something that should be something that's earth-shattering to you, because the minority student is the number one student that's impacted by this phenomenon. Meaning African-American students, Latino students, these are the students that are being impacted by not having enough funding at the very end. They're at the finish line and they cannot graduate and get their degree, nor can they participate in commencement services. Now, for some people, participating in the commencement, they're like, I could take it or leave it, I don't care. But let me tell you something about commencement. Commencement services is not for the student. Listen to what I'm saying to you. Commencement services are not for the student. Commencement services is for all those people, mama, daddy, grandmama, all the people who sent you them sandwiches, sent you them $5, help you with some money, help you with some food, some encouragement. When you get to the end, they want to come and be excited about John Doe and Jane Doe graduating. Especially, and this is 2017, we still have a large number of students that are first generation graduates from colleges and universities. Now, so what I thought about was like, you know what? I'm gonna take these, and this is what we're doing over the next week. Over the next week, and I'll post it. You can put it in the chat, Raheem. Yeah. You can go to GoFundMe.com/college completion scholarships. So this is what I did. We have the tickets, and what I'm going to do is this. We have a pair of tickets for an upcoming game. This is the most exciting game probably in Atlanta Falcons history. Everybody wants this ticket. So I'm hoping that a lot of people, will go in and make a donation to GoFundMe.com/college competition scholarships. And the way that I'm going to do it is this. We're going to look at you can donate any amount of money, but for every $5 that you donate, if you donate 20, you're going to get 4 entries. If you donate 50, you're going to get 10 entries. If you donate 100, you're going to get 20 entries. You donate 1,000, you're going to get 50 entries. What I'm going to do is over the next week, this week to next Thursday, on next Thursday's show, episode 28, what I'm going to do is go in and look at all of the donations that have been made to that GoFundMe account to raise money for scholarships. Now, I set the goal at $1 million because I'm going to run this campaign from now until April of 2018. The reason I say April 2018 and not May is because May is when most colleges graduate. So between now and April 2018, me working with this nonprofit organization, we're going to raise $1 million to help students. Now, a lot of people might say, why you start off so big? Because the first number I put in there was a real small number. I said, well, you know what? Why set a goal and set it so small that you know you can make it? why not set a big goal where you know you got to set a goal that's so big and so awesome that you know you're going to need God. You're going to need God to help you get to this goal. And when it happens, then it will be a testament to what he can do and what he will do. So I'm claiming it. I put $1 million in the GoFundMe account. That's the goal. So if we raise $250, that's what we raise. But the goal is $1 million. So when you go out for the next week, let's talk about how we're going to do this competition. You go out and you donate over the next week. $5, $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever you donate. You're going to get a certain number of entries into this giveaway. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 tickets. Here go the tickets right here. We're going to have 2 tickets to the game next weekend. It's going to be November the 12th in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The Dallas Cowboys are coming to town. I see all over Facebook, all them Cowboy fans and everybody. I would love to see the Cowboys. You might be able to see the Cowboys for $5. So the only thing you got to do is go out to GoFundMe and go to College Completion Scholarships. College Completion Scholarships. Go to GoFundMe. The link is on my Facebook page. GoFundMe, College Completion Scholarships, and make a donation. The best thing about this is it's twofold. Benefit, 100% tax deductible because it's a charity. You're donating money to a charity. You're at the end of the year, you might have made a gazillion dollars all year, so this is a good time to go ahead and get that tax write-off in place. So make a donation so we can help some of these students to ensure that they graduate. And again, we're giving away the tickets. Next week's show, when I get to next week, next Thursday, what I'm going to do is I'll make the announcement. We'll do it on Facebook Live because I don't need anybody like, oh, he raised the money, he didn't get the tickets away. The tickets right. I already got the tickets. The tickets right here. Dallas Cowboys, Atlanta Falcons, in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, November the 12th. It's going to be an awesome, 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 awesome event. So make sure that you share that with your friends and family members like, hey, it'll be a good thing, and you're giving it to a good cause, and it don't cost you, the minimum donation is $5. That's the minimum. The maximum donation is $1 million. So you may know somebody out there with $1 million and say, you know what, this brother doing some good work. I think it's a good cause. We donate $1 million. So be it. But whatever it is, we set the goal high enough that way I got to work. I got to keep working between now and April to get to that $1 million. And I believe it. I mean, because like I said a small number for us, I'll forget about it. I ain't going to do that. I ain't doing nothing like that no more. And on top of that, you'll get your little lanyard. I even throw in a little lanyard. And, you'll be able to enjoy the game. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is awesome. So I know some people in Jackson, other places, they'll drive to Atlanta to go to that because that game is going to be hot. The Dallas Cowboys are coming to town. So if you know somebody that are interested, make sure you share the link with them. Let them go out, make a donation. Next week's show, the 28th episode, I will pull it and I will do the drawing right here live. Jane Doe, you are the winner of these 2 tickets, and I'll tell you where to contact me and to get the tickets to you. Don't have to be present to win, meaning if I say you the winner, you contact me, I just email them. They're all electronic. So only thing I need is an email address, and boom, I email them to you. So if you know somebody, and it's for a cause. So think about, like we talk about on the show all the time. Think about the people that you can help that you'll never see, right? That little bit of money you spending on a dinner over here, we went to Red Lobster, we went to Houston's. Just think about that. $100 can change somebody's life. And what really, really, really got my attention to do this is I received a letter 2016, from the president of Howard University, and he was soliciting funds on behalf of 224 students that were at risk for not graduating from Howard University, completed all of their requirements, but they owed collectively $1.3 million. And to me, I was like, if it's 224 at Howard, I know it's some at Spelman, I know it's some at Clark, I know it's some at Morehouse, I know it's some at Fisk, I know it's something at Fort Valley, I know it's some at South Carolina State, I know it's some at FAM, I know it's some at Bethune, I know it's some at all these different colleges and universities. that are our nieces, our nephews, our sons, our daughters, and we need to get involved. So if you want to get involved, it's a good cause. We're giving away the tickets. You'll be able to go see the Falcons versus the Cowboys. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining this week. I had an awesome show. Next week, I'll pick up Business Startup. It'll be 102 because this week was 101. We'll continue with that conversation. I want to thank everybody that joined. The link, what's the link? Go to GoFundMe, or you can go to my Facebook page, and the link is on the Facebook page. Go to GoFundMe, and you can search College Completion Scholarships. And when you look on it, you'll see American Financial Literacy. I wrote a very long bio and story in there, so that way, and I'll make sure that I put the link back on the page, but it's on my wall right now. So that's it. That's it. So my producer just pulled it up, so it should be very easy. College Completion Scholarship. So spread the word. You may have some influential friends and other people that say, hey, I got $5. Just put 5 on it. Just put 5 on it. Over the next week, like I said, you might be able to see the Dallas Cowboys versus the Atlanta Falcons, because we will give that pair of tickets away next week. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. I don't take this lightly because I know how hard it is to get people to take time out of their busy day to listen to someone like me talk about personal finance. Is something that's near and dear to me. So hopefully you all have a great weekend. Hey, it's Reigns and Reebok weekend from where I'm from. That's what I'm representing right here. Reebok Trojans all day, every day. I even got my sign in here. So we closing out the show. It might be upside down, right?
That's right.
Look, Reebok Reigns, come this way. That's what I can't go this year. But hey, y'all do it big for me, and I'll catch y'all next year. From me to you, I love you. Y'all take it easy, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace. Oh, I love that, man. Turn it up, man. Turn that thing up, man. Turn that thing up, boy. Turn it. They can't hear it, man. Turn it up. They can't hear you.
They hear it through this. They hear it. Tell you.
That's what's up, man. Hey, y'all have a good one.